Today's fantasy football almost daily is sponsored by Game Blazers, where fantasy football meets mobile gaming. It's like Madden Ultimate Team, but for fantasy football and with real cash prizes, including $36,000 in week 8 and a record-setting $75,000 during midseason madness in week 9. By the way, contest free to play with lineups set from your own inventory. Use promo code FFAD for a one-time deposit match of up to $100. And complete registration to not only get a free starter pack, but you also get 2 rare packs for just $5. It's a $50 value right now. Go download the Game Blazers app today. It's also brought to you by Fanball, where you can play against real players, not algorithms. For instance, the Peacock. It gives you a chance at a $1,000 grand prize each week. And you're playing against 199 other people who have a max entry limit of 7. Not 8 million people. You're not trying to beat a group of fantasy players who have stuffed 150 or 300 or 450 lineups into $1 million contest. You actually have a chance to win. It's a better way to play fantasy. Check out the lobby right now at fanball.com. Scott Fish about to join me, and we're going to kick things off with a little bit of Less Than Jake.
From the Sports Hub Games Network, this is Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your host, Matt Harrison.
Welcome to Fantasy Football Almost Daily. I'm Matt Harrison at Explosive Output on Twitter. That's Scott Fish at ScottFish24 on the Twitter machine. And that references Ken Griffey Jr. And by the way, Scott, the other day I was cleaning up one of my closets and I found my Nintendo 64 with Ken Griffey Jr. baseball on it. And I got to say, that was one of my absolute favorite baseball games, was the Ken Griffey Jr. for the 64. I loved that the little, like, the yellow buttons on there were like your throw buttons to the specific base. I thought that was fantastic.
Yes. That is one of my favorite games of all time. I will be coming over to your house shortly.
There we go.
Playing a lot of that
my
game.
wife and I actually bust out the Nintendo 64 at least on a weekly basis to play Dr. Mario 64.
Okay.
And we're both pretty good at it. She's got the edge on me just a little bit, but Dr. Mario 64, absolutely fantastic.
She did do a lot of tournaments back in the day, so.
Oh, she's really good at those kind of games. She's awesome at Miss Pac-Man. Like, she's got like some old school video game chops for sure. Nice. We're going to go through most of the valuable free agency pickups in your fantasy league today. But before we do that, let's review some of the relevant news from around the league.
News team, assemble!
All right, Scott, the news from around the league is just kind of weird and murky today, so we can go through these pretty fast. Lamar Jackson, status uncertain this week for the Ravens. However, I'm going to go with what the Vegas lines are on this game. The 1-5 Ravens are favored by 6.5 points against the 4-3 Bears.
Yeah, there feels like Vegas knows something.
Yeah, so I think Lamar Jackson's definitely playing this week. Jaden Daniels and Bryce Young, their statuses are very uncertain, and we're going to talk about those guys a little bit later in the show. And the Jets don't know who they're going to start at quarterback. We'll talk about that as well. But one of Charch's favorites, Kendre Miller, he can't use him for take a chance on me anymore because it looks like he's done for the season with a torn ACL.
Yep. Yeah, he's done for the season. I'll go back to the Ravens. They're also getting a bunch of people back from injury this week, so that probably helps it a little bit. But yeah, Kendre Miller going to be out now. I think next man up is Devin Neal, and especially if they trade Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal might be a guy to stash at this point.
I did hear that Alvin Kamara said that he's not going to be traded.
Yeah, he said he would return. Yeah, he said something about, if they try to trade me, I'll be on a beach or something like that. Or I'll be sipping pina coladas or some kind of statement like that. We'll see, though. Other players have made similar statements like that before, and things have still happened. So we'll see. But Devin Neal
He
should be
really
fresh.
likes New Orleans or something, I guess.
Yeah, must be. Maybe he's just
Brock Bowers looks like he's on track to return after their bye week this week in week 9, and can't come soon enough for a struggling Raiders offense. And finally, the last thing, Tua remaining the starter in Miami for now.
Yeah, that to be expected. I don't think Quinn Ewers was going to win that job within that half of play that he played. I think Ewers. No, he didn't have any picks, but he only had like 50 yards passing. So,
did you see the video of Ewers coming off the field and like trying to talk to Mike McDaniel, and Mike McDaniel just completely ignored him and gave him the cold shoulder? It was super bizarre.
I completely missed that. I didn't see that this weekend. It's not a good situation in Miami. They have one win, but it feels like, I know they're 1-6, but they feel like they're 0-13 somehow.
Well, I think their one win was against the Jets too, so we can take that with a grain of salt, right? All right, let's move over to the waiver wire, which means it's time for Scott Fish to do some disco dancing.
I wanna boogie with you.
Who do you want to boogie with this week, Scott? Last week, we did not suggest any quarterbacks on the waiver wire show. Right. This week, I threw 4 on the list because there might be some guys that you can pick up. And in a bye week of 6 teams off, it's kind of a bipocalypse now. So you might need to pick up and start some of these guys. We'll start with Joe Flacco. He's 11% rostered. 342 yards and 3 touchdown passes last week against the Steelers. My favorite stat, though, he targeted Jamar Chase 23 times.
Insane. 16 for 23 for 170 plus yards. Just one score. 23 targets, just one score for Chase. What feels like it should have been more.
I didn't look it up. I should have looked up how many players like have below 23 targets this season. But Flacco is definitely old enough to know exactly where his bread is buttered. And as an old man with probably very few teeth left, he probably just eats butter bread most of the time, cut the crust off, that kind of thing. This week he gets the Jets. That's a fantastic matchup. He was a Jet at one time in his career, wasn't he?
I'm sure he's been everywhere. Actually, I don't recall him being a Jet, but it's possible.
Well, next week they get the Bears, and I think Flacco's like actually really startable in both of those games.
They're both fairly decent matchups. Yeah, those are startable games. Then he's got a bye and then a couple tough matchups in a row against top 10 pass defenses. But like you said, this is like a short-term bye week thing, and maybe he starts to gel with that team more and more. Remember, he's only been there 2 weeks, so maybe he gels more, gets that bye week to get more installs on the offense, and he's better going forward because their end of season schedule, they face 5 weeks in a row of 24th, 28th in against quarterbacks. So they have some really good matchups to end the season if he does become a good starter.
So the interesting thing is the Bengals I think they have 3 wins right now. They have enough to kind of be alive and frisky in that weird AFC North this year. They're not out of it. And so is Joe Flacco the guy down the stretch, or is Joe Burrow actually coming back for those games? And if you are able to acquire Flacco, is it time to try in redraft leagues to maybe get Joe Burrow for a penny on the dollar?
That is really interesting. That's an interesting call. On the Flacco front as well, I misquoted. He plays Pittsburgh is the first game after the bye, and that's the team he just lit up for 303 touchdowns.
So, they won't forget that.
Yeah.
On the other side of the Bengals-Jets matchup this week, Tyrod Taylor looks like he might be the starter on the other side of that matchup. He's only 1% rostered. Replaced Justin Fields at half last week. Didn't really look much better than Fields, though. He went 10 for 22 for 146 yards and 2 interceptions. Either of those quarterbacks, whether it's Fields or Taylor, is still going to be without Garrett Wilson in all likelihood because the Jets have a bye after this week, and it only makes sense to let Garrett Wilson have 2 more weeks of health under his belt before he comes back. But the Bengals is a great matchup this week for any quarterback. So would you pick up and start Tyrod?
You got to be desperate. He did throw 2 picks, and he had like a 45% completion percentage.
Yeah,
and he's missing Garrett Wilson. So you'd have to be pretty desperate to start Tyrod this week. But you're right; it is an incredible matchup. It's a matchup that it's bottom 3 against quarterbacks. Teams have been destroying this pass defense all season long. So I get it if you have to. I mean, who are the 6 quarterbacks on bye? You got Geno, you got Kyler, but he's been hurt.
Kyler or Brissett.
Stafford. Yeah. Sam Darnold, Trevor Lawrence. So, I mean, there's 3 or 4 general starters in there. So I can see it. I probably wouldn't. It feels like a 1 week thing that isn't going to pay off, probably won't pay off very well, but we'll see. It's a good matchup.
If you're just you're in a super flex league and you're down to like Cam Ward or Tyrod Taylor, it's probably Tyrod Taylor, right?
In that situation, especially with the matchup, it's Tyrod. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and it might be Tyrod over Andy Dalton, who's 1% rostered and looks like he might be set to start for the Panthers this week. Bryce Young, high ankle sprain in that game. Dalton in relief went 4 for 7 for 60 yards. He gets the Bills this week. Yeah, Buffalo's allowed the 3rd fewest pass yards, and they're tied with the 2nd fewest touchdown passes allowed. So it's Tyrod over Andy Dalton.
It might be. Yeah, I would put no stock in going after Andy Dalton. This might be a 1 week injury for Bryce. It might be longer. He might miss a little bit of time, but this matchup's terrible.
I mean, ankle sprains are a long-term injury as I point to my J.J. McCarthy jersey behind me.
You never know, but for my money, you're not going to start Andy Dalton this week. And if anyone does pick up Dalton to start him this week, they'll probably drop him the week right after because
exactly.
It's not gonna be you can get him next week.
It's not even a move that you'd make to block another team. I'd almost rather have them have Andy Dalton facing the Bills this week and go for it. Play that guy, sure. The other quarterback we can talk about is Marcus Mariota, 2% rostered. Jaden Daniels has a hamstring injury. Mariota got in for about a third of that game. He went 4 for 10 for 63 yards and a pick. That's not very good. But he did have 2 starts earlier in the year. He was QB6 and QB17 in those 2 starts earlier this season. But it's Kansas City this week. They've allowed the 5th fewest passing yards. They're also tied with Buffalo for the 2nd fewest passing scores. But Mariota's kind of a running quarterback, and they have allowed 3 quarterback rushing touchdowns and the 6th most rush yards to opposing quarterbacks. And that's how Mariota could be viable. So I like him slightly better than Andy Dalton.
Yep. That's true. I think we need to also keep an eye on Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin if they're even going to play. And that if they're playing, I would feel a little bit better about Marcus Mariota. You can count on 1 deep shot a game out of Luke McCaffrey, but outside of that, it's a pretty weak. Unless you want to depend on Robbie Chosen at this point, he doesn't have a lot of pass game options against the pass defense. So you're going to have to get those rush yards. I guess again ahead of Dalton, but some of the others we've mentioned are definitely better.
I forgot Robbie Chosen was still in the league. That's wild.
He caught a pass last week. I saw him do it. It's on the side.
All right. So out of these, Flacco number 1 with a bullet. Do you go Mariota over Tyrod in a 1 week starting scenario?
I honestly think I might go Tyrod just for the matchup.
Okay. So Tyrod, then Mariota, then Dalton. I think I'm with you. I think I'm with you there. All right. Running backs. I got 2 of them this week. Kyle Monangai, 7% rostered, had 15 touches last week, 83 total yards and a score, a season high 45% of the snaps for the Bears. And the Ravens this week present a pretty interesting opportunity. They've given up 149 combo yards per game to opposing runners and the 4th most touchdowns allowed to the position. They're giving up a touchdown and a half per game to opposing running backs. And With the Ben Johnson offense, he likes to run with two runners, and it seems like it's Swift and Monangai together, and they're doing all right now.
Yeah, they are. I mean, like I mentioned, they're gonna get people back. The Ravens defense. Roquan Smith is supposed to be back this week. They've been missing, I believe, for a lot of games, up to 6 starters on that defense, and they're gonna start getting them back now, especially this week. So a lot of those numbers you mentioned are pretty inflated from a really banged up defense. But you're right. It's Ben Johnson. The Chicago offense has been looking decent, and he'll figure out good ways to get the ball into Monangai's hands. He said multiple times this year he wanted to get Kyle more touches, and finally did last week. So it's worth picking up. It's an interesting start, like you said. It's an interesting spot. You might want to watch some of those defensive injuries for the Ravens. You'd almost have to have some major league Serrano Jobu size cojones to throw him in a starting lineup. But there are 6 teams on bye, so maybe you can fit him in there.
Yeah, if you have some flex issues, Monangai is a guy that I would play over my next running back. But Brashard Smith is the next guy we need to talk about. Yeah. He's only 6% rostered, and he's been a favorite of mine. I think I've used him a couple of times on Fantasy Football Weekly. Yep. It could have just been the blowout last week. They won 31-0 against the Raiders, and they were in control the whole time. But Smith handled 19 touches for the Chiefs last week, had 81 total yards. Worth noting, Pacheco had 16 touches, and they basically gave Hunt the day off. He only had 4 carries. I think Smith is worth a stash, but I don't think he's worth a start yet. Even though the Commanders, who are the opponent this week, they've allowed the 6th most receiving yards to opposing backs, and that is very much Smith's game. But I don't have those Jobu-sized cojones to start Brashard Smith in a lineup.
Yeah, I like you. I would lead Monangai over Brashard Smith. It was nice to see him get some work. I wish he was a little more efficient and productive with that work, but as you mentioned, his profile coming out was a pass catching back. That's his bread and butter. He's out there running a lot of routes, even on weeks where he doesn't get a lot of touches, he's out there running routes, which is nice. And this last week he had 5 catches, so he could get you those PPR points if you're really in a pinch. But he's one you might just want, as you mentioned, long term. If Pacheco falters, if Hunt starts really slowing down, he didn't get much this last game, but if he starts really slowing down and out of the picture, Brashard Smith's the guy to own on a pretty high powered offense this year for the Chiefs, unlike last year.
Yeah, the offense is looking even better. I did pimp Rashee Rice as one of my favorite plays in DFS this last week, and that went really well for me. Let's talk about the Buccaneers and a couple of pass catching options here. The only wide receiver we have on the docket this week is Tez Johnson, not to be confused with the other
MVP.
Yeah, MVP. Not to be confused with Cameron Johnson, who's also a Johnson wide receiver there. Tez is 18% rostered. He scored for the 2nd straight week. He had 9 targets on Monday Night Football last night. Baker was legitimately looking for him, and he was under duress the whole night by the Lions pass rush. Mike Evans looks like he's going to be gone for a little while. We don't know the status on Godwin coming back anytime soon. Egbuka battled through an injury on Monday. So Tez Johnson's going to be on the field a lot. The Saints this week are a slightly better than neutral matchup for wide receivers. They've given up a lot of wide receiver touchdowns this year, but not a ton of yardage. So what do you think about Tez Johnson as kind of a spot starter this week?
I like Tez Johnson. He's a guy I wish that had gone to the Broncos. Obviously, if you know his backstory, he went to high school with Bo Nix, lived with Bo Nix's family for a while, ended up going to a different college, then transferring to Oregon to play with Bo Nix. Even when he was drafted, he was on the couch with Bo Nix, and their whole family was there. It's a very fun story. He was very elusive in college. He's a 5 foot nothing, 145 pound. That's a joke, obviously, but he is very small. But if you watch that touchdown play on Monday night super elusive when he can be. And if you watch the touchdown play the week before, good speed, and he will ball out for it. Like he will go for the ball if it's dive, if it's whatever. And he got Baker's trust with that 9 targets, as you saw. Sterling Shepard still had 7 targets, but they were all really, really short. He had like 25 yards. So Tez Johnson is a guy that can get a big play. If he's going to get 7 to 9 targets with all those injuries, and his ability to potentially get a big play either from a deep pass or just an elusive, he breaks something. He's definitely worth having. I mean, this is a good Bucs offense. I know they only scored 9 points against the Lions, but almost every other game this year, they have been a pretty decent offense.
Yeah, the injuries might just be kind of catching up to the Bucs, but they still looked pretty solid for the most part. They were moving the ball up and down the field. They just couldn't convert scores. A lot of the reason they were moving the ball up and down the field was their first tight end, and that was Cade Otton, who's 31% rostered. He was targeted over and over last night. He also had 9 targets, caught 7 for 65 yards. When Mike Evans was out last year, Otton turned into Baker's favorite target, and Egbuka's probably that this year. He probably sticks with that title while some of the wide receivers are out, but Otton was the dump off option late in the game for Baker, and they just kept hitting him over the middle on like little 7-8 yard passes down the field. Saints also a pretty neutral matchup against the tight end, and I think if you needed a tight end, and I think there's a handful of pretty decent tight ends on bye, we're missing Trey McBride, we're also missing Brock Bowers and Sam Laporta. So I think Cade Otton's a pretty sneaky pick up and start this week.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. It feels like that's Cade Otton's life in Tampa Bay is when Godwin went down, like in previous years when Godwin went down or Evans would go down, and this year with all the injury, it feels like he's just there doing his thing, and then he gets thrust into this role when there's multiple.
Wait till everybody gets injured, and then it's my turn.
Yeah. So and he didn't get any scores here. He actually gets a decent red zone target share most of the last few years. He does, so when those injuries occur. So even though he didn't score here, he's not a bad bet for a touchdown in a better matchup like the Saints next week.
All right, final guy we're going to talk about today, a guy we've talked about on this podcast a couple of times, Oronde Gadsden Jr.
2. Yeah.
6% rostered, another guy with 9 targets last week, 9 times, Fish.
9 times.
Yeah. Yep. He made the most of his targets, though. I mean, Tez Johnson did okay, and Cade Otton did all right, but Oronde Gadsden, 7 catches, 164 yards and a score, and the rest of your league is on notice now about Gadsden. He's going to get picked up a lot this week. Plays Thursday night against Minnesota. The Vikings have been pretty decent this year against the tight end position. They've only allowed 3 PPR days of over 10 points to the tight end position this year. 2 of them were Browns tight ends in that game in London. And that was with Dylan Gabriel, like only throwing to the tight end the entire time. I don't think that with Justin Herbert's weapons, he's going to throw to Gadsden all day, every day, especially since the Vikings gave up a ton to wide receivers last week. So, well, I think Gadsden is a nice pickup and a guy that you can start in good spots. It doesn't feel like this is the spot.
Yeah, it might be a tougher matchup, and Gadsden's had a couple of those. After his first week, his week 3 or 4, his first week actually playing and getting snaps on here. I think he might, if he wasn't our top pickup, he was mentioned as one of our top pickups. I know in SFB with 22-man rosters, I threw my full 100 on him because it's tight end premium, and I'm like, I think this is legit. Like he came in, he immediately played over Disley and the former Jet, Conklin, immediately played completely over them, and it seems like it's his role. It will be interesting going forward, but I do think this is a little bit tougher matchup. But you want to get him. You want to get him on your roster. He's a starting tight end in an offense that throws the ball a ton. I think Herbert's throwing it almost 40 times a game. So 40 times a game, even with Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, there's still some room to be had for the tight end, and good matchups. You're going to love it. And ones like this, maybe he's a little more quiet, but that just means maybe that means a 7-point game, a 3 for 40 or something. Because Gadsden's still putting up some numbers.
All right. Who is your favorite pickup of all of these guys this week, Fish?
It honestly surprises me Gadsden's even on the list. I don't know his ownership percentage, but he's what?
He's only 6% rostered.
Yeah, that's insane to me. And it makes sense because he had a big week, a couple of real dud weeks, and then the last 2 weeks he's had 7+ catches 2 weeks in a row. So it does make sense that for those 2 weeks people thought, oh, maybe he's not a thing. But 3 of his 5 weeks have been double-digit fantasy days. So I don't. He might be the top one for me just because the tight end position is generally such trash. It's tough to find players. Outside of that, it might be Monangai second and Brashard Smith third.
All right.
I feel like wide receiver. I feel like a lot of those others are predicated on either quarterback injuries or wide receiver injuries on their team that have boosted them up. I think Monangai, I don't think Swift is that great, and I think Monangai can just continue to eat into that. I think Brashard Smith can start to take to Kareem Hunt's role, and Aranda Gadsden 2 is simply the starting tight end. So I think it's those 3 for me.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, pick up the guys who are going to be there for long term, not just the guys who were there last week. All right. Well, thanks, Scott, for all your insights this week. I'll see you. We're on Fantasy Football Weekly this week together, aren't we?
We are. It's going to be a fun time.
That'll be a good time this week. You, me, and the good old Paul Charchian this Friday. Play free weekly fantasy football contest for real cash prizes on Game Blazers. Use that promo code FFAD for up to a $100 deposit match and get ready for $75,000 in prizes during Week 9's midseason madness. Register today. This was Fantasy Football Almost Daily, and we'll see you tomorrow, maybe.
This was Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts.